Yo, what's going on, guys? Dirca here with another Dirca deck tech, where we take a look at how I build my personal commander decks. And today we're going to be taking a look at Arcades the Strategist. This is a Bant commander, meaning it's green, white, and blue, and it's a 4-mana 3/5 Elder Dragon with flying and vigilance. And whenever a creature with Defender enters the battlefield under your control, draw a card. Each creature you control with Defender assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power, and can attack as though it did not have Defender. So, as you might have guessed, this is essentially Defender Tribal. And one of the things that we have the advantage of is cheap cost and big butts. So we have things like Guardian of Meletus, who is a 3-mana 0/6 and just Defender. We have Wall of Mist, who is a 2-mana 0/5. We have Wall of Vines, who's a 1-mana 0/3 and has reach. We have the Consulate Skyclave, 2-mana 0/4 with reach. We have the Wall of Denial, 3-mana 1 white and blue for a 0/8 with flying and shroud. Jotty Offshoot, who's a 1-mana 0/3 with Defender and Landfall. Whenever land enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 1 life. We have the Stalwart Shield Bearers, 2-mana for a 0/3, and other creatures you control with Defender get +0/+2. And then we have the Thraben Gargoyle, who's a 1-mana 2/2, and it has the ability to pay 6 to transform it into a flying 4/2. However, we never really do that. We only have it in here because it's a 1-mana Defender. Easy card draw. We have the Taproot Kami, 1-mana for a creature that says its toughness is equal to the number of forests in play. That is all forests, including your opponents. And then it can block as though it had flying, meaning it has non-keyword reach. And then we have the Orator of Jutai, 2-mana for a 0/4. And as an additional cost to cast this, you may reveal a dragon card from your hand. It has flying, and when it enters the battlefield, if you revealed a dragon card, or if you controlled a dragon as you cast this, draw a card. Because we're going to usually have Arcades on the field, we get to draw 2. And then we have the Wall of Blossoms, who is non-conditional draw 2, because it's a 2-mana 0/4. When it enters the battlefield, draw a card. So if we have Arcades, we will draw a card and also draw a card. And then we have the Amaranthian Wall. This is a 4-mana 0/6, and you can pay 2 mana to make it indestructible until end of turn. We have the Geist of the Archives. This is a 3-mana 0/4. At the beginning of your upkeep, scry 1, meaning you can take the top card of your deck, put it on the bottom, or leave it on top. We have the Shield Wall Sentinel, 4-mana for a 1/3. When it enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a creature card with Defender, reveal it, and put it into your hand and shuffle. And one of the best things to search for is the Wingmantle Chaplain, 4-mana for a 0/3. When it enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 white bird creature token with flying for each creature with Defender you control. Whenever another creature with Defender enters the battlefield under your control, create a 1/1 white bird creature token with flying. So if each Defender make a bird, new Defenders also get you a bird. An interesting one is Fogbank. This is a 2-mana 0/2 with flying. Prevent all damage that would be dealt to and by Fogbank, meaning it can't hurt people, but it also is a permanent blocker. Who can hurt people, however, is the Colossus of Akros. 8-mana for a 10/10 indestructible, and it has 10 mana for Monstrosity 10, meaning if you pay the cost, you can put 10 plus encounters on it. And then, as long as it's monstrous, it has trample and can attack as though it did not have Defender. And then an interesting one as well is the Faithbound Judge, 3-mana for a 4/4 with flying and vigilance. At the beginning of your upkeep, if it has 2 or less judgment counters on it, put a judgment counter on it. As long as it has 3 or more, it can attack as though it did not have defender. Now, we don't really care about that part so much because it can attack anyway. However, if they, for whatever reason, kill it, whether it gets board wiped or whatever, and it's in the graveyard, you can pay that disturb cost to exile it from the graveyard and put it on the battlefield on the flipped side. So pay the 7, and you end up with Sinner's Judgment. This is an aura. It's a curse. You enchant another player. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a judgment counter on this enchantment. If there are 3 or more on this permanent, enchanted player loses the game. And then if this would go to the graveyard from anywhere, exile instead. So it's another way to win, essentially, but it's mostly there for a cheap flying defender. And then one of the best things to also search for in this deck is the Overgrown Battlement, a 2-mana 0/4, and you can tap to add green to your mana pool for each defender you control. And even better than that is the Axebane Guardian, 3 mana for a 0/3, tap to add X mana in any combination of colors to your mana pool, where X is the number of defenders you control. Now, if we don't have Arcades, we have a few backup plans, such as the Wakestone Gargoyle, a 4 mana 3/4 with defender and flying. It says 1 and a white, creatures you control with defender can attack this turn as though they did not. And then we have the Walking Bulwark. This is a 1 mana 0/3. It says 2 mana until end of turn, target creature with defender gains haste, can attack as though it didn't have defender, and assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power. Activate this only as a sorcery. Now, we also have a couple other backup plans, including the classic Assault Formation. This is a 2 mana enchantment. Each creature you control assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power. And you can pay a green mana, target creature with defender, attacks as though it didn't have defender. It also has the added bonus, pay 3 mana, 2 and a green, creatures you control get +0/+1 until end of turn. And then we also have this beautiful foiling, High Alert, 3 mana, 1 white and a blue for an enchantment. Each creature you control assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power. Creatures you control can attack as though they didn't have defender, and you can pay 4 mana, 2 white and blue to untap a creature. Now, if the defender beatdown plan doesn't work, and the Faithbound Judge flip doesn't work, we also have a classic that a lot of people don't like, but I tend to like it. It's a bit of a pet card for me. Approach of the Second Sun. This is a 7 mana sorcery, 6 and a white. Basically, if you the first time you cast this, if it resolves or not, it counts as being cast. If it resolves, you're going to put it 7 cards down on the top of your library and gain 7 life. If you cast this spell again for any reason, or another card named Approach of the Second Sun, you win the game. A lot of people don't like that. They find it too easy, but I tend to usually have to work for it, so I quite enjoy it. Now, we do have a handful of utility cards in order to make this happen. One of the best ones that I've recently found is Dragon Throne of Tarkir, a card that I've been sitting on for years and never had a place for it. And even though I've had this Arcades deck for quite a while, I kind of forgot this card existed until I was rummaging through some of my collection recently. It's a 4 mana legendary equipment. The equipped creature has defender, and it also gains pay 2 mana and tap it. Other creatures you control gain trample and get +X/+X until end of turn, where X is this creature's power, and it equips for 3. This is a great way to make Arcades a defender, making it benefit off of all of our different defender type things, while also allowing me to swing with Arcades because he does have vigilance, and then also pay the 2 mana and tap him and make it so that my creatures grow. It's actually quite a nice synergy that I can't believe I was sitting on for so long and just didn't put it in the deck. We also have Sidara Kondo of Jamora. This is a 4 mana, 2 white and green for a 2/5 human knight with flanking. Whenever a creature without flanking blocks this creature, the blocking creature gets -1/-1 till end of turn. But mostly it's here because it says creatures you control without flying or reach can't block. I'm sorry, creatures your opponents control. Creatures your opponents control without flying or reach can't block creatures with power 2 or less. And most of our defenders have big butts but little power. Similarly, we have Tetsuko Umezawa the Fugitive, 2 mana, 1 and a blue for a 1/3 human rogue. Creatures you control with power or toughness 1 or less cannot be blocked. And then we also have a few utility cards such as Sarah's Blessing. This is a 2 mana enchantment, and creatures you control have vigilance. Another even better card that's a bit of redundancy is Brave the Sands. 2 mana, 1 and a white for an enchantment. Creatures you control have vigilance, and each creature you control can block an additional creature. Another great thing to keep us alive is the Angelic Chorus. 5 mana, 3 white for an enchantment. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, you gain life equal to its toughness. And then similarly, we have things like the Oathsworn Giant, who's not a defender but helps my defenders a lot. It's a 6 mana 3/4 with vigilance. Other creatures you control get +0/+2 and have vigilance. And then lastly for utility, we have Sight of the Scale Lords. This is a 5 mana enchantment. At beginning of combat on your turn, creatures you control with toughness 4 or greater get +2/+2 and gain vigilance until end of turn. Next up, we're going to talk about the removal package. The single target, take vengeance, destroy a target tapped creature at sorcery. It's not great, but it's what I had. It can easily be a piece that's upgraded over time, but it hasn't really felt needed. And then we have Dusk, which is an interesting one. It's actually Dusk to Dawn, if you want to get particular, I guess. This is 4 mana, 2 white. For a sorcery, destroy all creatures with power 3 or greater. Again, most of our creatures are defenders with low power. And then once it's in the graveyard, you can cast the Aftermath of Dawn. And it says for 5 mana, 3 white, return all creature cards with power 2 or less from your graveyard to your hand. So it's a good way to get things back once they've been killed. And we also have a great card that I think is criminally underplayed in general, but works way too well with this deck. Slaughter the Strong. 3 mana, 1 white for a sorcery. Each player chooses any number of creatures he or she controls with total power 4 or less, then sacrifices all the creatures he or she controls. More often than not, we usually just have Arcades and a bunch of 0 power defenders, so we get to basically do a asymmetric board wipe that doesn't even destroy, it makes people sacrifice, and we are left with an entire board full of things. So it's very, very powerful in this deck. Now, a more universal board wipe is Cleansing Nova. This is a 5 mana sorcery, 3 white, choose 1. Destroy all creatures, or destroy all artifacts and enchantments. Bit of utility on that. I love anything that's modal. We have Invoke the Divine, 3 mana, 2 and a white. Destroy a target artifact or enchantment, you gain 4 life. And then similarly, we have the classic Naturalize, 1 and a green, destroy a target artifact or enchantment. And then if we need to get a not specific permanent, we have things like Cast Out. This is a 4 mana enchantment, 3 and a white with flash. You can cast it at any time you can cast an instant speed spell. When it enters the battlefield, exile target non-land permanent until an opponent controls until this leaves the battlefield. And if you really don't need it, you can cycle it for 1 mana, meaning you discard it to draw another card. Now, a card that's really not that great and could easily be replaced with a much better card, but I still like running it because I have it, is Desert Twister. 6 mana, 4 green green for a sorcery, destroy target permanent. This could easily be a beast within, but this is what I had at the time, and it served me well enough so far that I haven't felt I needed to upgrade it. And then for things that are not able to end, if I can't let them enter the field or let them resolve, we have things like the classic counter spells of Cancel, which is the 3 mana counter target spell, and then Negate, 2 mana counter target non-creature spell. Or if I just need to tap things down to get in through their defenses for the win, we have Bluster Squall, 1 mana instant, tap target creature you don't control, or you could pay the Overload, making this spell 4 mana, 3 in a blue, tap each creature you don't control. And then in order to help us get to all these places, we have things like Ramp. We have the Simic Key Rune, 3 mana for an artifact that taps for green or blue. You can pay a green and blue, and it becomes a 2/2 creature, a crab artifact creature with hexproof in this case. We have the Dragon's Horde, 3 mana for an artifact. It taps for 1 mana of any color, and when it enters the battlefield, when a dragon enters the battlefield under your control, which our commander is a dragon, put a gold counter on it, and you can tap this and remove a gold counter to draw a card. So it's a little bit of card draw, a little bit of acceleration or fixing. Manolith, easily a replaceable card, but good enough for now based on what I have. If I look to upgrade, this is definitely one of the ones I go for. This is a 3 mana rock that just taps for 1 of any color. An interesting one that I think is too cute for my own good. Spring to Mind, 3 mana, 2 and a green. Search your library for a basic land, put it in the battlefield, tapped and shuffle. And then once it's in your graveyard, you pay 6 mana and use it as the Aftermath Aftermath instant in this case, to draw 2 cards. I just like getting double benefit out of my cards. We also have Farseek to help us search for a plains, island, swamp, or mountain. And we do have a few typed lands in the deck, so this helps out a lot. We have Nissa's Pilgrimage, a 3 mana sorcery. Search your library for up to 2 basic forest cards, reveal them, put them onto the battlefield tapped, and shuffle. Oh, I'm sorry, the rest into your hand and shuffle. And then if you have Spell Mastery, meaning there are 2 or more instants and sorceries in your graveyard, search your library for up to 3 basic forests instead. And then we have the Sky Shroud Claim, 4 mana, 3 and a green. Search your library for up to 2 forest cards, not basics, but forest cards, and put them on the battlefield, not tapped, but just on the battlefield, and then shuffle. A very, very good card. A much less good card, but still one that I think deserves to see play more, is Explosive Vegetation. 4 mana, 3 and a green for a sorcery. Search your library for 2 basic lands, put them on the battlefield and shuffle. Tapped and shuffle. And then a pet card of mine that people hate when I play it because it's just so damn strong is Zendikar Resurgent. 7 mana, 5 and 2 green for an enchantment that reads, whenever you tap a land for mana, add 1 to your mana pool of any type that land produced. And then whenever you cast a creature spell, draw a card. So it's both mana ramp and card draw. Speaking of card draw, we have a small little card draw package here. One that, again, I'm a bit too fond of, it being a classic, is Mind's Eye, a 5 mana artifact that says when an opponent draws a card, you may pay 1 mana. If you do, you also draw a card. Then we have the Lifecrafter's Bestiary. This is a 3 mana artifact. At the beginning of your upkeep, scry 1. If you cast a creature spell, you may pay 1 green mana. If you do, draw a card. And then we have Inspiration, 4 mana, 3 and a blue. Target player draws 2 cards, instant. So, could be worse, could be better. It's a good upgrade path for better 4 mana draw spells. And then we have the Mentor of the Meek. 3 mana, 2 and a white, for a 2/2 human soldier. Whenever another creature with power 2 or less enters the battlefield, You may pay 1 mana. If you do, draw a card. More often than not, our defenders are going to have 0 power, especially less than 2. And then from there, we have our different varying utility. Things like Root Snare, which is a 2 mana instant, prevent all combat damage that would be dealt this turn. It's more or less a fog. We have Part the Water Veil, 6 mana for a sorcery, 4 blue. Take an extra turn after this one, exile this card, or you could pay the Awaken cost, which is 9 mana, 6 and 3 blue. You could put 6 +1 counters on a land. It becomes an elemental creature with haste, and then it's also still a land. Most of the time we just pay the 6, but if you need a backup creature, it's a great way to do it. We have Recollect, a 3 mana, 2 and a green sorcery. Return target card from your graveyard to your hand. They get rid of something you really need, or if you want to get back that Approach of the Second Sun an easy way, after they've countered it, that's one way to do it. And then we have a card that I absolutely love, one of my favorite arts in Magic, Bounty of the Luxa. 4 mana, 2 blue and a green for an enchantment. At the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, you remove all flood counters from it, and then if there are no counters removed this way, you put a flood counter on it and draw a card. If you did remove counters, you add one specifically colorless, a green and a blue to your mana pool. So 3 free mana on your main phase, or a free card draw. And one of the things to do with all these card draws is abundance. 4 mana, 2 green for an enchantment that says if you were to draw a card, you may choose to either select land or non-land, and reveal the cards off the top of your library until you choose one of the specified type. So if you need lands, choose lands. You're going to keep revealing up the top until you hit a land, or non-land if that's what you chose. And then from there, we just have the mana base, which is an interesting one for me because it's kind of jank, kind of not. We have wonderful cards like Reliquary Tower, which just gives us no maximum hand size and taps for colorless. We have Detection Tower, a card that is criminally underplayed in my opinion. It taps for colorless, or you could pay 1 and tap it, and until end of turn, your opponents and creatures your opponents control with hexproof can be the target of spells and abilities you control as though they didn't have hexproof. Essentially, ignore their hexproof. Then we have things like Evolving Wilds to get our color fixing for our 3-color mana base. Then we have Command Tower, a classic. Any multicolor commander deck definitely would run this. We have the Seaside Citadel, which enters the battlefield tapped, but can tap for any of our colors. And then we have our typed lands. We only have 4. We have Prairie Stream, which is an island and a plains. And when it enters the battlefield, it enters tapped unless you control 2 or more basics. We have Irrigated Farmland, which is a plains and an island. And it enters the battlefield tapped. And instead of playing it, you can pay 2 mana to cycle it, meaning you discard it and draw a card. Both of those are easily searchable off Farseek. And then we have Canopy Vista. This is a plains and a forest. And same thing as the Prairie Stream. When this enters, it enters tapped unless you have 2 or more basics. And then we have the Scattered Groves. This is a forest and plains, and when it enters this battlefield, it enters tapped, and you can pay the 2 to cycle it, meaning you discard it and draw a card. These are both searchable from Skyshroud Claim or Farseek. Then we have the couple different dual lands that gain us life, or just come in tapped, or come in untapped if we control a forest or island. Tap lands, pain lands, tap lands, life lands, come in tapped unless we control 2 or fewer tap lands. And then After that, we have our basics, which are 6 plains, 6 islands, and 6 forests. And ladies and gentlemen, that is the deck. So if you like anything you see here, make sure you check out gameplay for this on our Saturday Commander Day games that we do every week on the Twitch channel, twitch.tv/DircaMonster. If you want to see more deck techs, make sure to check out the channel. We have a playlist that we've created. And make sure you subscribe to see more in the future, because we definitely plan to do more. I have over 20 decks to go through already. So we're going to be having more than that by the time we get done with those. And that's about it, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate you hanging out. If you like the video, make sure you do hit the button. If you don't, hit the other one. Subscribe if you want to see more. And that's about it. I'll catch you guys later.